At 5:12 in the morning, while the rest of the city slept, a 12-year-old boy named Amir was already awake, sitting on the cracked concrete step outside a one-room tin house. He had no alarm clock. He had no phone. What he had was a habit, one small, unglamorous habit that would one day carry him further than anyone in his family had ever gone. This is not a story about luck. This is a story about what happens when a poor boy decides that his mornings belong to him and no one else. Amir grew up in a settlement on the edge of a city that didn't know his name. His father worked nights unloading crates at the market, coming home exhausted, saying less each year. His mother sold tea from a cart, her hands cracked from cold water and hot kettles. There were 4 children and 1 mattress. Amir was the second oldest, and by the age of 9, he understood something that most children never have to learn so early. Dreams cost nothing to have, but everything to keep. At school, when there was money for school, Amir was quiet. He wasn't the smartest boy in class. He wasn't the strongest. Teachers barely noticed him, except to mark him late, because most mornings, he was up before dawn helping his mother carry water, or watching his younger siblings so she could start her cart early. His future, if anyone had bothered to guess it, looked like his father's. Tired, small, repeating. It started with an old, torn magazine page Amir found blowing across a gutter. On it was a photo of a man in a suit, standing in front of a building with glass walls. Underneath, in faded print, a single line survived the years of dirt and rain. He wakes at 5. Before the world asks anything of him, he has already given something to himself. Amir didn't understand all the words, but he understood the feeling. That morning, for the first time, he didn't wait to be woken by his mother's voice or the sound of his father stumbling in from work. He opened his eyes on his own, in the dark, and he sat up. He didn't have books. He didn't have a desk. So he did the only thing he could do. He sat outside on that broken step, and he thought. He thought about what he wanted his life to look like in 10 years. He thought about his mother's hands. He thought about the boy in the torn photograph. And for 15 minutes, before anyone else in his house had opened their eyes, Amir belonged only to his own mind. The next morning, he did it again. And the next, 15 minutes became 20. Sitting became walking, slow laps around the block before the streets filled with noise, repeating to himself the few words he could remember from that torn page. Adding his own, he started collecting old newspapers from the market stalls his father worked at, reading by the light of a single bulb before anyone woke. He taught himself new words from headlines he didn't understand, asking a schoolteacher what they meant, one word at a time. He wasn't chasing grades. He was chasing the 15 minutes. The morning had become the 1 hour of his day where nobody could take anything from him. Not poverty, not exhaustion, not the weight of his family's expectations. Just him, the quiet, and the decision to become someone slightly different than he was the day before. Other boys in the settlement slept until noise woke them. Amir woke before the noise existed. That was the entire difference. Not talent, not money, not luck. Just those 15 minutes, protected like the only thing of value he owned. Because it was. It wasn't easy. There were mornings his body begged him to stay under the thin blanket. There were mornings it rained through the tin roof, and the step was wet and cold. There were mornings his father, coming home bitter and tired, mocked him, asked him what good thinking would do a boy like him. In a place like this, Amir never argued back. He simply woke up again the next morning. By 14. He was helping other children in the settlement with their reading, in exchange for small jobs, sweeping a shop, carrying goods, watching a stall. By 16, a teacher who noticed his hunger for words helped him apply for a scholarship at a technical school across the city. The kind of opportunity that never found boys like Amir unless someone went looking for them first. He was accepted, not because he was the most gifted student in the settlement, but because in his interview, he spoke about ideas the way most boys his age spoke about football. Years of 5 a.m. mornings had built a mind sharper than his circumstances should have allowed. The scholarship changed his access, but it was the habit that changed his life. While other students slept in as long as the dormitory allowed, Amir was still rising before dawn, reading textbooks twice, sometimes 3 times over, not because he was slow, but because repetition and silence was the only tool he had ever known. His classmates studied for exams. Amir had been training his mind to work in silence and discomfort since he was 12 years old. At 19, he was offered an entry-level position at an engineering firm, largely because of a professor who remembered the boy who always arrived to morning lectures already having read the material twice. Amir never stopped waking before dawn. Even years later, with a proper bed and a proper roof, he kept those 15 minutes, now grown into an hour, sacred. He used them to plan, to read, to sit with his own thoughts before the demands of the world arrived asking for pieces of him. He eventually helped his mother close her tea cart for good. He eventually helped his father retire from the crates he'd carried his whole life. But when people later asked him the secret to how a boy with nothing became a man with something, Amir never spoke about the scholarship, or the job, or the professor. He spoke about a torn piece of paper in a gutter, and the 15 minutes that came after it. He always said the same thing. I didn't wake up early because I was disciplined. I woke up early because it was the only hour of the day that was completely mine. Everyone deserves at least 1 hour like that. Somewhere tonight, there is another Amir, a child with no desk, no books, no one watching, whose entire future is still unwritten. And somewhere tomorrow morning, before the noise of the world wakes up and starts asking things of them, they will have a choice: to stay under the blanket where it's warm and familiar, or to sit up in the dark and claim just 15 minutes as their own. Because the truth is simple, and it always has been. It was never about the money. It was never about the luck. It was about who owns your mornings. Stop waking up to the world's demands. Start waking up to your own. That 15 minutes might just be the whole story.